guess who the favorites were?
KT roster.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to LCK 2019. You had a long break after our first series, Kingzone dispatching KT in pretty swift fashion, which was a surprise to many of us, thinking that our summer champions would continue to be good. Not actually the case, as Kingzone were able to topple them in 2 games.
But this week we know, Atlas, we always have one side and the other side of the standings, and we had the bottom side play out. Kingzone just too good for KT roster. Now we're on the top side. It's first or equal first versus fifth. It's kind of awkward. We have 4 teams at 2-0-2-0. But HLEvsGRF are 2-match wins. They've dropped a single game to KT, but on a 4-game winning streak, just like all these other top teams. They come in big underdogs against Griffin, but we're still really understanding all our terms, defining all our terms with both the 2019 meta and this pandemonium at the top where SKT and all the young guns are gunning against each other. Can HLEvsGRF upset expectation? Because I think a lot of people are already looking forward to next Thursday, 8 days from today, SKT versus Griffin. And in your head you think, yes, undefeated versus undefeated. There's still plenty of business to attend to. 2 best-of-3s for both those teams before we finally see them face.
Exactly right. And I want to talk about HLEvsGRF just for a little bit as well, because they just managed to get that 2-0 against the Afrika Freaks, which is why, as you can see the standings right here, Afrika Freaks now sitting at 0-2. HLEvsGRF, like you say, I mean, it was a little bit of a rough one against KT for game number 1, but they turned it all around, and I feel like they're the little train that could, This team has really come together and shown so much more cohesion and coordination than what I was expecting with the relatively limited roster changes that they made and conservative choices in the players that they decided to replace people with.
And while I 100% agree, now the rubber hits the road, which is kind of the subtitle of week 2 of the LCK is, all right, we've seen what you did before. You've either been winning or you've been losing. Do things change now that the competition gets higher? Griffin represent right now the apex of competition in LCK Spring 2019. We'll confirm the rosters. I think you can predict them based on what we've been seeing. Why mess with a winning strategy? Right now, both these teams doing a whole lot of winning.
Yeah, and this is definitely, I'd say, the most difficult team that Griffin has come up against so far. I mean, Kingzone certainly looked like they were struggling in their series against them, despite being able to pick up a cheeky first blood on the bottom side of the map. It was very easy for Griffin, and then Jin Green Wings look all at sea. So HLEvsGRF on a 2-0 winning streak so far, the bottom lane looking strong and their coordination looking good. This could be a little bit more difficult, but like you say, the smart money is definitely on a pretty swift 2-0 for Griffin.
Well, right now, the number is 12. Both my favorite number and the number of games in a row Griffin has won in the new meta. Since they started Kesper Cup, they have not dropped a single game called sets in Korea. Gets kind of weird. We do sets and matches if you're the Korean fans. We do games and matches here, or games and sets. So confusing, but 12 best-of-1s in a row for Griffin. And my 4th match point is, what the hell champions are Griffin going to play? Because as we know, Evelynn, Ornn, Eve, these have all come out. I said Eve twice. Elise is the other one there. We've had some tricky champions, and we found a stat where Griffin are not first.
Well, they're definitely first in Team KDA. Almost 19 is just absurd. Damage per minute, not quite there yet, sitting at 4th, but gold per minute, certainly up there at the very top. Are able to pretty much eke out as much as they want, especially in that Kingzone series that we saw with Tarzan taking that Rift Herald, breaking down all the turret plates, and then walking away 2,000 gold ahead of his opponent. Certainly not how you want to experience the game. We're going to watch him just destroying Rascal with the Hail of Blades in Zao, which I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of in your solo queue.
Tarzan has no KDA, 24 kills, no deaths, 25 assists.
Yeah.
Only one other player in the LCK has not died. It's also on Griffin. Chovy, 15 kills, 0 assists, 0 deaths, 25 assists. These guys are right up there. We want to get them defined. Hanwha Life, no.
Yeah.
If they is still an undefined KDA on those two players, they've lost the match.
Yep, they're looking to try and define it. This game is watching Sword having a pretty good experience here as well, just drifting his way through.
Yeah.
Man, actually wasn't. That was Tal getting his MVP performance, actually. Entire top side of the map, picking up MVPs for Hanwha Life Esports, the team that I was talking about before, being able to play very well as a team and being able to really build up Sangyun. You can see it's all about team fights for these guys, and they're playing it out very, very nicely, with Tal being extremely aggressive, taking that Abyssal Voyage.
And just some players really leveling up. You got to say that Bono looking way above performance in the past, and he will actually be in this key player comparison. Two junglers, one of which we have to give you his full KDA, because it turns out when you divide by 0, it's undefined, and I feel like Tarzan's maximum as a player, not just as a jungler, but as a player, is also undefined. This guy is so damn good. He wants to also pull off a bit of a selfish milestone as well. 4 games, 4 MVPs. If he wants to do one better than the world's MVP in Ning, he needs to win a double MVP to actually hit 6 in a row. Right now, Ning's streak did end at 5.
Yeah, did end at 5, but he's got 2 games to do it here, and Bono was dismantled by Score in their first matchup, but then came back and really turned around his performance, continued that against Afrika at the same time, and those stats aren't too bad at all in the kill participation column.
6 kills per game as jungle, including
and
a Zac
over
game.
double the damage per minute.
There was a Zac game there deflating those stats. You know who's not deflated? Hanwha Life, and they should be smiling. They come into this week 2-0. It is a roster, even a starting 5 we couldn't have expected. Mujin was the most hyped addition to this roster. He's never played for Hanwha Life, even in the Kesper Cup. Tal in the front has also, so far, been able to reignite a career that seems stalled on SK Telecom T1 in 2018. So warm applause for Hanwha Life Esports. They come in as, like you say, the best team so far to play Griffin. Can they make this a competitive series, whatever the match score reads?
Yeah, and I want to look back a little bit. I know the past really isn't something that we should be talking about, but the first time we saw Griffin in summer, their matchup against Hanwha Life Esports was one of our more interesting Griffin matchups as well.
Was the first time that Griffin actually played on stage, and Hanwha Life almost beat them in the first round. So good note there. Atlas feels like a long while ago, and there was a time we would say that Griffin were more than the sum of their parts. And if you say that now, doesn't it mean something very different than when you talk about Hanwha Life? Because you know what? These parts seem pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
When it comes to Griffin, no sign of Cabby. They will be going with their starting lineup, and the cheers only get louder every time they step into Lol Park.
Absolutely. Just getting more and more fans with every victory that they put up, and that doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. At second man, you can see on your screen Tarzan coming into his own like no other player that I have seen. Just extraordinary, his performance thus far. We'll see whether he can, like you say, continue that MVP streak, or whether it's going to be someone else taking it away from him. Their drafts are fun. There's been another recent interview with CV Max as well that was very interesting, talking about their training strategies and how he actually utilizes subs and things like that. They asked him the question, why don't you have a 10-man roster? And he said, well, the way we train is too weird, and I don't want to put people in that position. It's very interesting. Definitely go and read it.
Didn't comment on how they train, so maybe that's for a future interview. For the current lineup, Tal, Bono, Lava, Sangyun, and Key, they've been rolling with these guys for longer than we expected. After game 1, when they were just slammed by KT Rolster in their first game, we thought, okay, roster change, let's go. They never changed. They reverse swept that series, 2-0'd Afrika, and that's why they come in. at least based on today, worthy opposition for Griffin.
Well, we'll see whether they can prove that when we hit the Rift, because this squad on your screen right now is incredibly terrifying. Like you say, no Cabby, but they don't need to change out Lehens. That guy can win if he's flash cocooning and missing every single one of them on Elise.
And we've learned, if you buy Redemption, a lot of support champions available. So,
yeah.
Will there be some new stuff? Again, whenever Griffin is pressed, they just say this was the best pick for the scenario. False bravado, lies, truth, we don't know. Griffin are mysterious, but the mystery is going to take a big umbral slash if we do actually see some fun picks coming out here, because I think we're overdue for a Kane and LCK.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. Tweeted about it when Ning brought it out in one of the first games of the LPL, but now, here we are, into Champion Select. First up, it will be the Aurelia ban. Chovy's never going to see that champion, I don't think.
Nope, not after Kesper Cup Final where he popped off on the Aurelia. Still patch 9.1, guys, so Aurelia power level, nice and high.
Oh, yeah.
What a Griffin ban, because remember Griffin and the team to not ban OPs on red. They'll say, actually, you can first pick whatever you want. We know what we're doing. So they're the least likely to go for the tier list bans. They left Cassiopeia up in the past. Now against Hanwha Life, a fellow 2-0 team, they do ban Cassio, and perhaps they'll play with their food a little bit less.
Yeah, I actually like the Cassiopeia ban here, just because it feels like they're giving a little bit more respect to Hanwha Life Esports, as opposed to, it was Grace that played it for Jin Air when they left it open the other time, and it was a very different story with how that game was going.
Now, if you ask me the million-dollar question, do you ban LeBlanc against Lava? My read for Griffin is no, but I don't know necessarily the champion Chovy would take into it. So that's the interesting one. Lava had to contend with a Game 1 LeBlanc ban, played it in Game number 2 and popped off, so he would love to get his hands on that again, and we saw some great LeBlanc play from Pawn in Game number 1 of the day.
Yeah, really great performance from him. Good to see him finding some sort of form. Not entirely sure what it means up against a struggling KT, but as we go further into the season, will be exciting, as that's a Galio. It's going to be banned on the blue side for Hanwha Life Esports. Looks like they're aiming for something like an Urgot. Though Tal's Scion was definitely his most impressive the last time we saw Hanwha Life Esports.
Mentioned in the interview that right now Urgot in the top lane is undefeated, and the champion overall has an insane win rate of 12-2. Griffin know this, and they leave open LeBlanc and Urgot. And the Urgot will no doubt be picked first. What do Griffin want to do? Because sometimes they can go for the style. They've missed bans. They've picked Evelyn, Elise, and friends.
Yep.
What we do in Griffin is a very interesting question to pose. When it comes
Akali
to tier list
Scion
picks, Akali is open, like you say, Scion and Lissandra.
Yeah.
Other flex picks are open. Griffin could also take Rakan that is available in the first round for the first time today.
Hey, that's true, and that was sort of a favorite. Normally, you get a different first pick, leave something tasty open, and then take the Urgot Rakan. It's been a lot of second rounds, but it's going to be Akali Rakan this time, because Akali was the one that snuck through. Picks and bans, Chovy. It's the player that so far played it here in the LCK on Griffin, but we know it's Griffin. That Akali could be anywhere.
And it just feels like the start of a winning draft is Galio, Urgot first pick into something like Xayah Rakan second round. So keeping the Rakan ripped away from one of these really maneuverable solo laners is probably in the best interest of Griffin. How
is that what they're going to do? Picking the Xayah here, is that something that Griffin are going to consider, or do they want to continue that awesome dude possibility?
Now, for a lot of teams, I might wave my finger at that, but remember that Songyun was always really good on the Xayah. We always had teams that were Rakan teams like Afrika, and Hanwha Life were actually a Xayah team when it came to which of the two they would take, so I think they'll consider it, Atlas. Let's see. They have the Tahm Kench already. Champion
Ezreal standing out.
Been around. If they want something to park into the Akali, they could have Urgot and Lissandra as viable solo lanes to hunt it. So they will consider what we were talking about, dispense with it, and just go for the Lissandra, again, more as a team comp choice on the side of Hanwha.
Yep, and this is the composition that SKT popularized so much in the Kesper Cup. Very, very standard stuff here with the Urgot Lissandra. Flexible as well, but that's the Scion that we were talking about before. Of course, the next tier of top lane, and can, of course, be flexed around as well. So Sword and Chovy able to decide where they want to put these two champions, and it's likely that we see things mixed up, and potentially even after we're onto the Rift as to where these are going to go. Akali wants to dodge that Lissandra lane.
Feels so far pretty transparent in terms of flex solo laners and a support. Will there be any bans to perhaps take us off guard? An Ezreal ban, something that Songyun's been playing a lot, and definitely to some degree a tier list ban. But I wonder if we see a third, another big frontliner next to Scion. Remember that it was Viper that's popularized Halo Blades Vayne in solo queue that now has been seen around the world was played in the EULCS by Attila. LEC, I should say, to correct myself, catch it early.
That's all right.
Zac just straight up banned by Hanwha Life, usually a response pick to the Sejuani. But Zac power ban, I guess, to potential Goomba Stomp, like we saw highlighted very, very well. With Galio taken out, the Zac does kind of scream as an interesting ban in this case. Maybe Sejuani is what Bono wants to be playing on the side of Hanwha Life.
Well, the Olaf is going to be banned away, and that's the champion I was going to talk about. Remember, it was Bono that debuted the Olaf in his first 2 games of the series, and then he's continued to win as we've moved to other teams.
Now it really feels like Sejuani for Tarzan is screaming out here, because the Zac is banned. The Olaf hunted Sejuani in a previous game. Bono could still go for something ultra aggressive, like the Camille into it. But trying to make sense of all of this is Hanwha Life will respect ban the Xayah as well. So jungle and support being looked for Griffin. A lot of teams, jungle and AD carry, I should say, a lot of teams have been last picking their jungler, and it seems like Griffin will continue that trend. If they go for Kalista and Rakan, it isn't necessarily a duo lane that packs a lot of punch, so you could go Varus as Hanwha Life to try to punish the 2v2 weak laning phase of that particular lane.
Well, the Jinx is going to be hovered for the moment. We know that Sungyun, also one of our resident Ashe players, who can dominate the lane on that champion, does work out quite well with the Tahm Kench, as we've seen from last year. But the Xin Zhao going to be locked in. Bono going to be hailing down some blades on top of Tarzan if he can, depending on what that matchup is going to be. Is now finally, we'll see what Sungyun's going to be bringing to the
You can pick almost any AD carry here, and we can talk about it after. It's either hyper carry or utility, because you can get away with a lot against Kai'Sa, and you can either double down on lane or provide a bit more utility. Varus would have been the full lane choice, but pretty scary against all the engage on side of Griffin. Still a lot of engage to potentially hold down Ashe, but at least you got a Hawk Shot to help out Xin Zhao, because Tarzan does get overall last pick when it comes to his jungler.
Yep, so Tarzan, we'll see what he is actually going to be
playing some crazy stuff in solo queue. Would you consider a Rumble here? He's been playing Rumble jungle. I wonder what he'll decide to take as final pick. It will be the original thought. He just goes for the Sejuani. More of a square draft from Griffin than perhaps the last couple of games where they've been flexing on different picks.
Yeah, wanting to have something a little bit more beefy, and Griffin's composition looks like it's a little more slow-moving than we'd otherwise expect. Chovy, if he is indeed the one playing the Akali, will take a little while to get towards that first item. Spike, the Hextech Gunblade, definitely necessary for Akali, can really do any bullying. Kai'Sa, of course, known for her hyper carrying, and Sejuani is going to take her time in the jungle, but we know what Tarzan's capable of. This was in a weaker version of the Sejuani and made her look completely busted against Gen G in that 3-0 sweep of the Kesper Cup final. But speaking of Gen G, that is such a stock standard bottom lane coming in from Hanwha Life Esports, and a lot of safety with this draft in general. It's very tier list, and it's very 9.1 meta.
And I agree, it is much more indicative of the meta than Griffin's previous games. So, like you say, a lot of strong champions on both sides. Pretty ultra utility focus on the side of Hanwha Life. If you get out of bot lane first, it's not quite Ezreal Tahm Kench, but Ashe and Tahm Kench can also be that utility mid lane duo. Very powerful first round solo lanes, and then a Xin Zhao. And Xin Zhao versus Sejuani is probably the only real disparity between the two lanes. To some degree, I guess Lissandra pushing in Akali early. Wondered about the lane assignments here, but Sword is the more common Scion player. We know he loves to build utility and initiate those fights that Griffin are famous for. Hanwha Life versus Griffin, when it comes to the draft, nothing really to separate the two teams.
Yeah, and I don't know whether Chovy will be mixing things up, but guys, here we are. We're into Summoner's Rift for game number 1, Griffin versus Hanwha Life. Here, Griffin fans, just the cheers get louder and louder the longer we get into the season and the longer Griffin keeps showing us these performances. Double cleanse on the side of Griffin, not wanting to get locked down by any of these arrows that could be anywhere on the map.
Very interesting to see the level 1 plan here, because Bono, when he's got a lead, has been very good at snowball in the jungle. Feel like we've seen great games from Bono, and also that one bit of a underperformance against Score in game number 1, where Score won the MVP for KT Rolster.
I feel like we can call that one a whoopsie, given the fact that we now have 5 game sample size, soon to be 6.
I feel like 1 week's not enough sample size to have a full opinion on Bono. He had a great week, but we're all about best of 3, 18 best of 3s in a season. So very much still solidifying his reputation. Here's Bono. How much longer can Chovy and Tarzan go deathless? About an hour and a half of play on Summoner's Rift and no deaths for either Chovy or Tarzan in LCK Spring 2019.
Well, Tal going to grab the first minion point. It's actually Lava that picks it up somehow, not entirely sure, but it's going to do it. The Purge not quite enough to eradicate it entirely.
Leash a start for both junglers. The duo lanes don't often meet no leash versus no leash in the bot lane, but we are going to see that.
Just wanting to give themselves as much of an opportunity as possible. I think it's smart from Humble Life to meet Griffin here because they want to be able to start bullying this lane with the volley spam coming out from the Ashe. And Bono considering coming down, going for an early gank.
No ward placed on the bottom side. Jungle paths here would be split scuttles, which you're not always guaranteed in the Sejuani versus Xin Zhao matchup. I think the moment that Sejuani went top side, top scuttle, and full clear top side was likely. Xin Zhao has a lot more options because flexible gank paths from level 2. But for now, just going to guarantee himself 2 big buffs and then probably back off for the scuttle. With the addition of having the Hawk Shot, you have to be very safety first as Tarzan, and he will be spotted by the Hawk Shot top side as suggested.
Yep, Sungyun 100% accuracy so far. As soon as level 2 was hit, able to utilize that one. So Tarzan not going to be doing anything sneaky so far, and that Tri-Brush ward is also going to give Tal the heads up. If anyone is going to be coming over there, most likely the Pig Lady.
This is the competitive play norm, which is if you look at the lane and say, okay, I don't really have a winning lane in mid or top, and the jungle matchup is a losing skirmish one, you go for a full clear of your top red side, because guess what? It gives you level 3 thanks to the extra experience in Krugs, and then you say, I'd love to pick up this Rift Scuttler, but I'll accept that if it's contested, I have to disengage, and like we mentioned, Sejuani gets the bad news, and no Rift Scuttler to the side of Griffin.
Yeah, I actually really like that play from Humble Life. The push in from Tal, making sure that Tarzan didn't feel safe. Taking that Rift Scuttle means it's going to be double gold going over to Bono, which is something you would expect in this particular matchup. Like we spoke about earlier on, Griffin will be taking a little while to scale into this game, to use the naughty word.
And even though the paths here have been kind of camp for camp, what you would expect, Tarzan could have made the risky choice of an earlier scuttle, but shows the respect and says, no, that's not what the game plan suggests. I'm going to go for the guaranteed level 3 and give it up if I have to. However, Tarzan now going for a surprise bot lane gank. He was not spotted by the scuttle vision.
Yep, Lahens does have all of his buttons available. They're going to jump right on top of the Tahm Kench, who just gobbles up Sungyun as quickly as possible. Key does have the grey health, pops it at exactly the right time, but is it actually going to be enough? Void Seeker blocked, but it doesn't actually matter as Viper picks up the kill with the last of his mana.
Just about overkill him through the summoner heal available from Key. Sungyun with the teleport, Key with the heal and the unsealed spellbook. They get the kill. Man, you had to plan everything perfectly, and Griffin pulled it off. Yeah,
really, really nicely done. Lahens with a great engage. Normally he'd have some options here as the Tahm Kench, but the Devour wasn't enough to save his life, even with some of the best grey health timing that I've seen.
Watch the replay here. Everything perfect from Griffin. You have to engage on the Tahm Kench, and Devour has to be used early so you don't turn onto him. Like you mentioned, does get the grey health off. They try to wait for the auto there. The W doesn't do it, but the auto attack does. Overkilled by about 20 health because everything played perfectly from Key. Almost gets him away.
Yeah. Nicely done on both sides, but in the end, Griffin, first gank is successful.
That's not in turret range? That's weird.
Yeah, it looks turret range. Need to play more co-op versus AI, Pop Smith.
Apparently.
Get those ranges out.
Chovy himself farming up. We already mentioned the cleanse earlier, showing respect in the lane. I think top side is pretty much steady as you go for both Griffin solo laners. Akali knows there's happier times when you have Gunblade in a QSS, or maybe just the Sorcerer's Shoes, given the cleanse, and you can maybe take Lava in a very long lane, in a short lane in mid. It's about min-maxing farming, just like we saw from Knight on TOP. Now normal is this particular keystone choice of the fleet footwork. Especially in a short lane like mid, the movement speed means you're impossible to hold down.
Yeah. Well, Bono going to come over and just grab himself some of these minions. Teleport available from Lava, so he'll be back immediately. Gets a lost chapter to start this one off as Viper goes home, gets himself quite early BF sword. And the Kai'Sa having a pretty decent start to this game so far as Tarzan back down again, flashes in for the Arctic Assault and Key. The grey health pop very early, but you are dead once again, and Tarzan going to grab that kill. Bono comes down, but he's too late for the counter gank.
Bit of a bonanza there for Tarzan. Feels like that shouldn't have been pulled off, but they note the cooldown and say, wait, Key's flash is off cooldown. He doesn't have Unsealed Spellbook to actually switch over just yet. Got it over the course of that fight. Speaking of fights.
Yeah, now it's another fight as Lehens gets the knock up onto Bono, but the Hail of Blades does a lot of damage back. Life Esports still here as key. Teleported his way forward with that Unsealed Spellbook that you talk about, and they're continuing to fight. Lehens has to flash away as Tarzan in trouble. First death for the man. That is now a definable KDA of 50.
Nice for them to continue the chase there.
51.
Lehens tried to offer himself up as tribute by staying as the most rearmost member because his summoner was up. It doesn't matter. Guardian not enough. No way to get out there for Tarzan. Finally goes down, but of course after 2 kills has done a number on the bot lane of Life.
Yep, and it's exactly the 2 kills that you wanted to get as we have a look at this one once again.
It just feels too easy because Tarzan, communication is clear, no flash on key, far too far up the lane. No ward to clear out either, but here of course is the teleport coming in. It means no escape plan is actually in the picture-in-picture. Tarzan might be dead again, he is.
Yep, they're diving on top, and that is going to be Tal. Just eating him up there, straight into the grinder, straight back into the death chamber once again. Feels like if Tarzan decides to die, he decides to really die.
There was a very deep control ward that we can see in the mini-map right now that actually spots him on that Krug camp. So nicely played by Life. They're trying to keep Tarzan in check for the first time in LCK Spring.
And now 1-0-1 for Bono. We mentioned this guy looks great when playing from ahead. Well, guess what, Papa? He's ahead.
It's a really good team jungling move because that was for sure Tal's control ward on the top side. And now Tarzan's level 4, Bono level 6, and that piggy needs to get the hell out.
And look at all these control wards. Most of them
Bono's
inside the base of Griffin as there's the blast cone over. Chlorodoom for Lava. He's just going to get rid of some of these puppies.
And now you get only the camps that Lissandra and Xinjiao want you to. Here is that full replay. Notice again the deep control ward. Tal walks up. They wait for Xinjiao. Great piece of League of Legends here, and you don't even need to use the flash. They had the vision to just eat over onto the Krug camp, and goodbye Piggy on the side of Griffin.
Yep, now Tarzan without his flash for half the cooldown, and things going from bad to worse. Of course, this is a new thing for Griffin that we haven't seen so far. How do they play when they're playing from behind? And yes, behind is a difficult word to say because they're only 1,000 gold in a deficit, not even quite there yet. But still, this is very different to the other Griffin games that we've seen so far in the LCK.
The only truly competitive game they've played, I'm not including the First Blood that was nicely done by Defton Tucson, was that first game against Gen G that went 40 minutes and required some epic team fights from Griffin to battle back. Since then, it's been 11 pretty clean performances. So, like you say, we're getting more scientific experimentation than we might have expected in this particular matchup between two 2-0 teams. Not seeing the golf in class between the two. We'll see how Griffin fight back, especially with their trademark MVP jungler actually having to be a lot more respectful about his pathing.
Yeah, certainly does now after dying twice. So, Warrior Enchant almost there for Bono. The Hail of Blades will need to be respected for far longer in this game than it otherwise could have been if he was kept in check by Griffin. Lava coming over. Chovy doing a decent job of avoiding a lot of this damage, but Bono's just going to wait out this Shroud and look to really put the pins into Chovy. There's the Audacious Charge. A lot of damage, but not quite enough. They do not get the flash. Chovy's going to be okay.
They don't actually draw a relevant cooldown. He actually holds on to his ultimate as well there. That's nice steadfast use of summoners onto Chovy. Still, the map is being run by Hanwha Life. If they get the bot lane turret, which right now is very, very healthy, and park Ashe and Tahm Kench in the mid lane, that's a lot of ripping at the seams of Griffin's comp that we already mentioned is waiting for certain timings. Speaking of timings.
Yep, Ring of Frost going to come through, but Chovy is okay for the moment. There's the Frozen Tomb as Tal just waddling up the lane. Wanting to try and get something for this.
Remember the ult here. Chovy's pretty low on health.
Yeah, we're going to zoom out. Hanwha are going to grab themselves the dragon. That is some more turret plating going over to Lava, and they're continuing to build an advantage.
Chovy is the only player in the LCK Spring to have played every game and not died. Can't even draw a summoner out of this man. Continues to clear. When it comes to the mid lane here, no harm, no foul. Nice little move there, but Tarzan body blocking means no fear beyond death from Tal.
Yeah, not going to happen. He wasn't quite at the threshold there either, and it's a bit dangerous to dive. So 11 minutes into the game, Hanwha Life have themselves a dragon. They've got some extra turret plates, but it's 2-2 apiece for the kills. You've got that Cinderhulk already done here for Tarzan, wanting to continue trying to affect this map and grab some of these ganks after those 2 deaths, his first here in the LCK for 2019.
Aftershock forced out, but no more from Lava. No way for Chovy to do too much here. And finally, the Sejuani can leave lane. Top lane.
Yeah, bit of a tank battle. As Tarzan's going to come over, but Bono, the timing is the same for both of these junglers. Bono getting in there first as the ultimate immediately popped. And now Sword in a bit of trouble. Permafrost down as the knockup somehow registers onto Tal. He looks for the ultimate, the flash from Tarzan. Is he actually going to be okay though? Corrosive charge comes in and Tal wants it, doesn't get him with the last auto that looked like it was going to kill.
Ladies and gentlemen, pop your potions, dies in about 15 health.
Yeah.
15 health away from death. They're so close onto Tarzan for his third death in the early game after already having a 2-level disadvantage over the enemy jungler. With that lead, they're going to rotate up Tahm Kench and the Ashe and try to get at least the Rift Herald to pile pressure onto Tarzan.
Well, there's the Frozen Tomb as soon as Chovy came out of the Shroud, but not quite able to get there in time. A Humble Life, the bottom lane, a little bit out of sync with Lava in the mid, but top side of the map, they're going to take down Shelly. And Humble Life just constantly trading up here in the early to mid game.
What should happen when you have Xin Zhao versus Sejuani, but theory and practice when we see Tarzan bring Sejuani back during the Kesper Cup before the rework. It's actually his first game on the post-rework Sejuani. So while he's defined Sejuani priority a bit when it comes to Sejuani ever since Kesper Cup, right now at least, Bono's put on a great jungling performance to decrease his impact. Look at the amount of camps different between the two.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We're talking about 7 camps difference between Xin Zhao and Sejuani.
Yep, now has his Warrior Enchant, has himself the Mercury Treads, and probably sitting on a little bit of gold there as well, as only one of the control wards, but we have about a minute for Shelly to actually get some turret plates. I'd like to see whether Bono can actually throw it into a lane and get a whole bunch of that gold.
Fun little lane swap here coming through from Tal and Lava. It's an armor stacking coming through from the Scions, so trying to get the lane matchup they want. We now know that Kai'Sa and Rakan are shadowing. Let's see what happens here.
Yep.
Griffin are going to be spotted on this control. It's got so much value.
It's the value control ward, man.
It's been the best move of the game so far, a control ward.
And we've seen that ward get put down so many times and get this level of value, because it's just not often that you walk through that particular brush. It's a cheeky one, an oldie but a goodie when it comes to that particular move for Humble Life.
It's also one of those fundamentals of brush you need to check ever since control wards and their current form introduced. For once, it's going to be CV Max pointing at something and saying, how was this allowed to live for this long? And he's not talking about Humble Life. That's a much later conversation. It's the control ward that's got Humble Life a lot of these advantages.
Well, 3 seconds for this last turret plate. Are they going to get there? No, they're not. Don't quite. They miss out on that 160 gold. But this is a Humble Life esports that Griffin needs to respect, because this lead is only becoming bigger.
The tempo lead is being snowballed. They're going for an inner charge. Chovy can only do so much buying time in the bot side, and there's no answering turret, no answering objective from the side of Griffin.
Yeah, and Bono is just running this map right now. They have so much vision wherever they want it. Control ward comes in, but that's immediately going to get taken away from Lehens.
You know what made this possible, Atlas?
What?
The control ward on the top side. Because they got 2 wards down on one side. They saw the rest of Kai'Sa and Rakan reinforcing top side and deciding, do I need to go mid, do I need to go top? And they said, there's not going to be anyone to wave go against the Rift Herald. Now is the time to go bot side. So the spotting control ward does it again.
Yep, so basically Tal's going to get the MVP, and the highlight video is just going to be us looking at that ward. Locked cam on the ward, baby.
Let's give that ward a name. It deserves one. Come on, Atlas. Now's your time to shine.
I like Gerald. Can we call him Gerald?
Gerald the Ward
Gerald
has done
the Ward.
so much work.
Oh,
Gerald sounds old, so it fits the ward. It's lasted a long time.
I know. It's the oldest ward that we've seen. And they've continued that pressure. You can see the bottom side. They're doing their best Gerald impression, trying to get as many of these wards down as they possibly can. And Tal is more than happy to push really far up. Here in this lane, they know exactly where Lehens is. The Rakan not getting the value that so many of our Rakans that we've seen so far have been able to get.
So Chovy is the only one who kind of is still standing when it comes to assignment, wants to farm out against Lissandra, able to do that, and now has the core down. For the Akali here of the Gunblade. CS for CS with a Lissandra, you're very
here
happy
we are, the Gerald cam.
with that one. Exactly. The observers know what's going on here. They love Gerald as much as we do. I want to see if Chovy can make something happen against Lissandra in the side lane. And just as I say that, Humble Life say, nope, that's not the lane assignment you get. You can contend with Urgot, and that's a more tricky opposition for the Akali.
Yeah. We're going to do some, I guess, tidying up. Lehens considering a gank here in the mid lane, but Gleaming Quill not even going to find its mark. But you can see the CS certainly working out well here for Griffin. The laning phase is going fine. Things mostly going wrong in the jungle. HLEvs do have themselves close to a 3,000 gold lead to show for it, and a monopoly over these dragons and the map in general.
Double Ocean's actually pretty decent for where the game state is at. For HLEvs, in a different game, if, say, top was fed and they were switching for Drakes, well, you'd be like, damn, could use some Infernals. Given that right now they have bot lane turret down in a very long lane there, Ashe with the Ocean Drake is a whole lot of poke for either Akali or Sion or Sejuani. It's a very short-range comp on the side of Griffin. And speaking of Griffin, Chovy in danger of his first death.
Yeah, trying to take down Bono here, who I think the Hail of Blade's now on cooldown. The ultimate's going to be used. Flashes out of the way. The Spear Beyond Death is going to grind up the Akali, and it's all too easy. Sungin going to follow up here as well as Tarzan has to flash away, but it's the disdain to get rid of Lehens. He has to use the quickness, flashing away as well. And HLEvsGRF have woken up, and Lava even avoiding Sword's ultimate and might be able to kill him right back. Ring of Frost in turret range. And Sword's going to have to rethink that engagement.
Most influential play was actually off-screen. Lava thought he was safe to teleport in and actually just got interrupted by a Q from Sword. Didn't even have to ult for it. Yes, Sword looks a bit silly, taking extra turret shots, but he did a big job there. Otherwise, Lissandra would have compounded another kill onto Tarzan.
Just trying to work out what this means, Papa. I'm trying to understand the HLEvsGRF versus Griffin. What does this change if, in fact, I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but what does it mean if this is a win for HLEvs?
Well, let's first zoom in on this play here and understand it, as the Abyssal Voyage was also interrupted at the start of this play. Kind of crazy to think this play could have been even better for HLEvs. It ended up a 1-for-0. No way out for Chovy. Fear Beyond Death means first death comes in the 5th game. TP here. Watch the minimap. Instantly interrupted. Yes. I guess Lava wasn't aware that Sion was still around on the top side. What does it mean? Well, again, eerily similar to the last time we had a really runaway hype match was LCK Spring 2017, when the SKT Super Team met SK Telecom T1. The KT Super Team, I should say, met SK Telecom T1 for the first time. That was the last game of the first round robin, so later than SKT Griffin, which is played next Thursday. But just before the undefeated streak for both teams was ended by MVP upsetting KT in a match that no one saw going the way of MVP. If HLEvs take even a single game, that means that what seemed like it was likely to be an unblemished matchup between the two is a very different thing, and our HLEvs expectations go up another tier, and they're already getting pretty high.
Okay, that was definitely a visual bug. Eristal wasn't actually right next to Lehens, but here's the 5-man siege. What is Ashe pretty good at? She's pretty good at sieging. They're just going to move up to that outer turret in the mid lane, get things worked out, and before Sword can even hop in the train and get into the lane to counter anything. Style continuing to be aggressive as Chovy has to backflip his way over the wall.
Pretty big gold lead for just what is a single kill on the side of HLEvs. 2 Drakes and about 4,000 put together. Eerily similar of Kingzone Dragon X in the first game of the day. Largely bloodless, and Griffin often are the ones who can inflict big bloodless leads on the enemy. Not seeing that here ever since Tarzan has been very well held by a targeted team plan from the side of HLEvs. Things are getting better and better, and only healthy CS totals are what Griffin can show for the early game.
And Bono's just looking to complete his death note here as well, Papa. He's already got score in there, wanting to put Tarzan on that list, alongside Spirit as well, after they took down the Afrika Freaks. This is a Hanwha that I think if you want to start getting excited about this team, it's almost about time, and don't worry, it's not KT, so you're allowed to.
I'm interested to see team fights here. If we do see something representing a true 5v5, Griffin does have outplay potential. We talked about how Smeb wasn't able to zone in a mobile 80 carry on Akali last game. Well, Chovy's free-farmed and has a similar assignment against Ashe. And if Ashe is out of the fight, there's very good mid-game damage on Urgot, Xin, and Lissandra, but it's a very different proposition than if Ashe is free hitting with Hurricane, which you have to imagine is coming soon. Viper gets his 2-item core before that fight happens. There is a fight that Griffin can win, but the advantage should come in to HLEvs.
Yep. And evolutions are coming through as well for Viper, so this late game is going to be real scary, and 2-item spike has been hit as we speak about it.
Gerald's dead.
Oh no. I didn't even watch. Can
I
we
know.
have a funeral?
I prefer it this way. Sometimes when I know a TV show has been canceled, I don't watch the last episode, and I imagine it was alive forever.
Yes.
It's possible that Gerald was moved.
Well, I hope so. As Chovy, he's in trouble. Ring of Frost keeps him locked down for a very long time as Bono looks a bit silly.
Flashes.
Jumping forward, but it's Lahens that dies first. Sword finds himself in the front line, which is often where a Sion wants to be, but not this time. He's just dead. As HLEvs Esports front-to-back team fighting just seems to be working out so well for them.
And after Chovy's caught in position, Lahen's taken down. They don't get a fear beyond death. That would have been the worst-case scenario, but they do get a scenario where Viper can't do any damage. Chovy's out of the fight. That means that Griffin, once again, are going to have to vacate the map, and the Mountain Drake, another freebie for HLEvs.
Yeah, and their vision, it's just continuing to move further and further forward. Yes, Gerald has been taken out, but guys, let's have a look at this one again. Chovy out of position, and this is why Lissandra is so good into the Akali.
Chovy doesn't want to use his ultimate, gets out of the fight, but then Lahens has to spare the bush. This nice arrow coming through from Sangyun. These old-school lady carries, first Deft, then Sangyun, both playing Ashe today, and we're starting to understand why. Sword dives in, and yep, there is going to be no dive out. It's not to the tune of a Baron yet, but it feels like we're running out of easy objectives for HLEvs to tick off the list. They've got basically all of them in the early game.
Yeah, and a free third turret here as well on the bottom side, just with the wave management going in favor of HLEvs Esports. It's going from good to better here for this squad that, I mean, Tal was underperforming on SKT. Bono looked like a disaster on BBQ. Lava was honestly great.
Yeah.
To be perfectly frank with you guys, so understandable that he's still going to be this rock, but the bottom lane is just such a powerful unit here for HLEvs Esports and so consistent so far.
Also, think back to HLEvs 2018. 2 seasons, 6th place, so close, right? Choking against Jin in spring season when we had Crown in tears, believing Gen G had missed the playoffs. Then we saw that choke come through from the time. The Rocks Tigers. And summer season again close, but finishing 6th overall. Atlas, the problem that I think we can isolate about old HLEvs is that Songwon and Linderang was so up and down. That old duo had good games, pop-off games, but also made their mistakes. Somehow Bono and Tal have become the reliable top jungle duo that's allowed HLEvs to hit the next level.
Yeah, and this is a team that has Mugen sitting behind. They've got Soan sitting behind Tal as well. And they brought in Temp to make sure that they could keep Lava honest. This is an exciting 10-man roster as Lava's thinking about face check and Chovy, which seems like a bad idea, but claws his way out and he'll be okay.
That was a ride that you did not want to take as the Akali.
Oh, heck no.
We back away here. If the CS was in any lane significant, then you'd start saying, ooh, even the best case scenario for Griffin won't work. The CS being so healthy everywhere means that the out-execution that Griffin have shown, they have definitely pulled a rabbit out of a hat so many times.
Yes.
We look at their comps and say, ooh, less damage in the mid to late game, whatever other boilerplate points about team comps, which I'm not talking about this team, I mean in the past, they've overperformed and then some with some just amazing team fights. I think of that knock-up party against Africa Freaks in the first game they played in Kesper Cup. They're going to need to bring that back. They're going to need to really pull a rabbit out of the hat, because right now, HLEvs are deserved victors, and they're looking for more.
Yep, audacious charge in here from Bono as HLEvs Esports really wanted to lock down Akali, but she took the right path, just straight down the river.
Still didn't ult.
Didn't ult, but also moved away from the turret. That's going to go down for free. 4th over to HLEvs Esports, continuing to roll in that global gold, which is to the tune of approximately 7,000 at 25 minutes into the game. And I know we talk often about Griffin's ability to come back from almost unwinnable situations. When do we start saying that this game has got out of their control entirely?
I think a Baron is the first thing that would represent that, the most easy objective to inspect, but even a lost teamfight at this point could snowball into 2 inhibitors. They are really far ahead right now at HLEvs without needing to pull off a team fight. And if you can keep this game in no team fights to the enemy team, which tricky, there's a lot of pick CC on the side of Griffin, but if you can avoid being, if you play a mistake-free game, you should win as HLEvs, basically with only a fight over the Nexus perhaps. So for now, with how much of the map they can push up, if you can continue to put down vision, maybe a control ward line that extends to the red buff and blue buff spawns of Griffin, then Griffin really lack options to actually mount a contested Baron, let alone find a way back into the game.
Well, Viper is now searching for what looks to be Runan's Hurricane as item number 3, wanting to get as much teamfight damage available for himself. And we know that this Griffin comp, we can see what it does, right? It goes at you, and their front-to-back team fight is actually a really beautiful one to watch because Chovy's going to be darting around, Sword and Tarzan theoretically tanking,
it's a little bit
and
less
can initiate.
But the funny thing is, it's almost inside-out rather than front-to-back because it's very unlikely that Kai'Sa will stay at the back and just hoover damage into a front line. It's going to be a lot of finding the right times to back up an Akali or Rakan dive, and then the amount of threats being lower on the side of Hanwha Life. If they can contend like that, yes. But true front-to-back is what Ashe thrives in. She wants to be in the back line and never moved from maximum uptime on her Rangers focus, the Q. Uptime, that happens here. If we see an aggressive flash from Songyun, that probably means a Game 1 victory for Hanwha Life. So I think a pick, a Sejuani ultimate into Rakan and Kai'Sa backup is what's required to halt what is just a slow advance from the side of Hanwha Life.
And, I mean, what did we see? Last game, Songyun played the Ashe. It was another great performance, actually. And we saw him flashing forward. That was one of those games where Lava, okay, hopping on over here as Lehens needs to be a little careful as that ward. Did it actually spot him? I believe it did.
I believe it did. He was actually just out of range of an instant one rotation onto Lehens. Not sure if they know about this ward. It's getting a lot of value.
Yeah.
From Hanwha Life. Finally going to be spotted. Sometimes the toe of those brush control you.
Yep. Well, we'll see whether it's going to be Hanwha going for some sort of sandbox-esque Baron play. You'd hope not.
This is hard-and-mouth stuff for Griffin fans, though, for the first time, again, since they re-debuted at Kesper Cup. Another poor move. If Hanwha Life trade up again, you're running out of trades. It's just becoming overwhelming on the side of Hanwha Life, and that Infinity Edge might be done already from Songyun.
Yep, Songyun's heading back right now.
He's got it.
Yep, it'd be insane if he went back without the money to complete it. So that is the 3-item spike and the double control wards coming out from the Ashe.
And Griffin have to basically recall instantly because they cannot afford to be behind in items and exhausted of control vision, because that's a 1-2 punch that means Baron and maybe the end of the game. So looking at the inventories here, 2 control wards being bought and being wielded from Lehens. Everyone else has combo stats, battle stats on the side of Griffin. So there should be a pretty big vision edge, given there was already vision control for Hanwha Life.
Yeah, we got 6 in the inventory, which, doing the mathematics, 3 times as little as Tarzan. Oh, not going to get hit by that arrow, just slightly off from Songyun. They are going to be able to grab themselves the red buff, still in control here on the side of Hanwha, but that's a big button that Griffin might try and capitalize on. The train walking up the river.
Not spotted by any vision.
Lava looks for it, finds the frozen tomb. First pick, not going to land, though, onto Lehens, and that's a lot of buttons now down as here he comes. In goes Sword. They've been split up as Chovy gets into the backline. Ultimate lands nicely from Tarzan, but will they actually have the damage? The reset for Hanwha Life is pretty good. The Viper launches into the backline, and now Key's taking the focus. Tal's in trouble. The knock-up is going to land as Tal's taken down, and Griffin. We always ask the question, can they get the Miracle team fight as Tarzan uses his whole health bar, and that is somehow the ace. How does Griffin do this?
It's almost a clean ace. It's a 4-for-1 when they were 9,000 gold behind. They turn onto Baron, they hoover it down. That's the inside-out team fight that Griffin were desperate for.
Oh, man, and Hanwha Life, so unfortunate, misses a few key buttons, but other teams might let them reset. Griffin says, hell no, we are fighting you right now, and they'll take the Baron.
And it's somehow 2015, 2016 SKT of how do they do it again? Watch the fight here. This is better terrain than Griffin have usually had to fight on. Chovy gets in the backline. This is what we couldn't see Smeb do. Inflict pain onto Songyun. He's out of the fight, not doing damage. No Rangers focus uptime. And then watch the entrance here. Snipes down.
Boom.
Bono, great time from Viper as Chovy can get into the backline. This is Akali and the Kai'Sa played at the highest level. This is Griffin, and they fight back from what seemed like an almost unwinnable scenario.
And the aggro management in the end there as well. I mean, Tarzan somehow living on approximately 0 health as the kite back was being attempted by Hanwha Life. Just unbelievable play from this Griffin squad. And I was ready to begin counting them out. Just not going to happen as, damn, that Ashe damage was huge, but just not enough.
Ashe does 8,100 damage and only Rakan dies because, like you mentioned, Atlas, the trade tanking, the stasis timing, everyone knew their limit, and as we know with Griffin, wordlessly darted in and out to get their men down and not allow any of their own men to suffer. really nice execution there. And sometimes you read those interviews with CV Max and you do a double take and say, that's a lot of fancy words without saying much. Sometimes a picture is 1,000 words, and Griffin teamfights are some volumes of text. They're thousands and thousands of words that show you that there definitely is something special about Griffin and CV Max.
Absolutely. It feels like CV Max is almost like the Willy Wonka of
esports,
I know. Coaches.
And his golden ticket is Griffin.
Yeah. Well, all of these 5 players got that golden ticket and got into the CV Max boot camp. He's a crazy man, but still, so many results, and I don't know how he's done it, but he's done it again. But if we have a look at how the game state is, 4 Dragons in favor of Hammer Life, and they still have that lead in gold. That being said, Hammer Life Esports' confidence will be shattered after that ace.
Let's see how much standing gold you can take, because actually all the bookkeeping after the Baron, while we were just getting excited about Griffin, means only a minute is left of Baron, and they still only have that single turret. It hasn't also completely eroded the gold lead. It's now mostly irrelevant, but the 4 Drakes are still there. The easy objectives have not been taken. They want some global gold, but there's no turret plays to get back the gold they seeped out in the early game, and even this turret is going to last a long time in bot.
Well, the thing that I'm worried about, if you're a Hammer Life Esports fan, is the fact that Viper just finished in Infinity Edge.
Yeah.
And this Kai'Sa is certainly a win condition for Griffin.
But also,
and it's one that's going to wipe them out very quickly if he can just free hit.
Also, he could be wiped out pretty quickly. So
True.
No stopwatch now in the build. QSS is subbed into that spot. Yes, you know what a team fight that Griffin wins looks like now. We weren't sure before.
Yeah.
Now we also know what a team fight they lose looks like. So with the QSS, you can drop the CC from the Fear Beyond Death, but not wanting to be in that position again. And can they find a team fight like the one they did in their own jungle, where actually the terrain counted against the enemy as well?
Songyun able to step up and actually clear out these minions, as the outer turret in the mid lane being pretty difficult to take down for Griffin, as their composition doesn't exactly siege the best with a low-range 80 carry. And otherwise, a very, very melee composition, unless you include Rakan. Oh, I don't. Bottom side of the map, that outer turret that you were talking about does go down. But otherwise, it's only 2 turrets comparison to the 4 that was picked up, and that is not much of a dent to be taken out of Hammer Life Esports' gold lead. However, stops it from being that linear trip to a victory.
It was 8,000 gold as that team fight started. It is now the better part of 2,000, maybe even less.
Chovy, what the heck was that? Just dives over and steals the red buff,
Meanwhile,
and they just engage. That's Songyun going down. What did you say about wiping out the 80 carry? Well, Griffin can do it as well. They will get rid of him, and Lava is going to follow very quickly. And now Bono versus the World Key wants to get out of their Abyssal Voyage. That one he's not going to be able to do next patch, but they do manage to get him out. Damage has been done, though, and now Griffin are going to start tearing apart the base.
People are losing their minds in the Griffin fan group. They know that was the big pick there. They just make something out of nothing. There's never blood on the hands for Griffin. Apparently, they just wash their hands plenty of times in a team fight. They wash their hands out of a supremely poor early game by their standards, and now they're ahead in goal.
And that was with Hammer also playing very clean. Their early game was really nicely done, and finally, Griffin have got themselves to gold parity. I don't know how they do it as well, Papa. I felt like this was the rebirth of Hanwha Life, but so Chovy pops over, steals the red.
He gets the red, but watch the next part of this play. Turns on to Bono, gets the Devour instantly, wordless communication of Tarzan, ulting Songyun. They know the Devour was on cooldown, and Songyun dies in a half second. That's where the talk of wordless communication is actually seen, because that was just ultra pristine, clean play from Griffin.
Yeah, cerebral hive mind technology being imprinted by CV Max. Maybe that's what it is. Hanwha Life, it's not over yet. It's only 100 gold in it, but the gold almost not worth talking about. It's how these team fights are working. It's the 6-item Kai'Sa. It's the big target that is painted on anyone who is away from the Tahm Kench, or when that Devour's on cooldown. Griffin just seemed to know exactly when to pull the trigger. Feels like their team fights are just set up to be better than that of Hanwha Life.
And now the Mercurial Scimitar is there, the 1,000 gold bounty is there, and Viper has 6 items before anyone else on the Rift. This escalated quickly. It's exactly what happened for both Griffin and Viper. He deletes anyone in a half second. Apparently the Scuttle Crab is the definition of anyone, and now the Elder spawns while Baron is on the map. Feels like Hanwha Life's best hope is to get 1 out of 2.
Yep, 1 second. he's going to be up. Purple Worm is still there.
Griffin can't really afford to give over a free 4-stack Elder. See what the call is. They dissuade themselves off Baron. That was the 50-50 they were being offered. Sion has to come soon. Yeah. Down to 7,000.
He's going to have to use that ultimate. Does have that one available as the Void Seeker lands onto Sangyun. Misses the ultimate from Tarzan as in goes Lahens. Gets the quickness as Viper. Right into the backline. Key's going to be taken out, but Sangyun was the first to go down. Stopwatches are not going to be able to stop this onslaught as Lava is picked off. We're looking for the pentakill. That's it for Viper!
Pentakill for Viper. Doesn't need an awesome dude. Does it anyway. Frontlining on Kai'Sa, and Griffin win the game.
That was ridiculous. You can't go for objectives with a 6-item Kai'Sa, especially not in the hands of Griffin. And like you said, they'll walk up the bottom lane. And I doubted them. I'm not going to lie to you, Papa. 9,000 gold is hard to come back from. We haven't seen it so far in 2019. But who's the team that's going to do it? It's going to be Griffin.
Lucky number 13 since the Kesper Cup. 13 best of ones in a row. This one, the trickiest one. So much credit to Hanwha Life, but in the clutch, Griffin is too good.
Just ridiculous. The Nexus to go down. Hanwha will wonder what the heck went wrong in that mid-game. But they made one small mistake. They missed one arrow, and Griffin came back from a 9,000 gold deficit.
To call it a highway robbery would be do a disservice to how well Hanwha Life played out this early game.
Yes.
It was mistake-free until, like you say, an Ash arrow was just off on that big model of the Sejuani. And then there was still so much work to be done even after they pulled off the first kills and Baron. They were still behind in gold. But every time from that moment onward, something clicked. That spark fired in the Griffin 5. And from there, no faults to be levied at them. A lot of work on the early game. Finally, a VOD review that's not over before it starts for Griffin in LCK Spring 2019. Big cheer from the crowd. They know that their players outplayed in the clutch, but still has some work to do in the early game.
And we can see that Griffin's still a little bit perturbed by what Hanwha Life has always been able to deliver to them since they debuted.
Atlas, that game, that was what a lost game from Griffin was going to look like. That was what you need to do to make mistake-free trade-ups. Gerald also is going to be watching on, wondering why his time wasn't so fruitful. They did so much right, and still it wasn't enough.
Exactly, and I have a feeling it's not going to be Tarzan this time around because he died a few times in that early game. Bono honestly won that jungle matchup up until about 25 minutes in, and honestly, it wasn't his fault that the game fell away from them. Still, have to hold your head high if you are Hanwha Life in how you played out that early game, and try not to let it fall out of your control because it's still a best of 3. There's still a chance they do it in game 2.
Issue is a lot of young players who only recently have returned to winning ways, and the problem I have, Atlas, is I bet tomorrow they can look back and say, damn, didn't we play well in game number 1?
Yeah.
But in game number 2, 20 minutes from now when they hit the Rift, that's so much harder for Bono, who remembers BBQ all of his losses only so well. Finally, he's going to be feeling back to the past. Look at this ascent.
Look at the assists.
Yeah.
That is insane. 30 extra assists when they were losing in kills at the beginning of that game, but it just shows that they just team fought as a unit of 5 to get themselves back in.
5 becomes 1 is the Griffin mantra.
The hive mind, man. I feel like just every time we talk about it, it becomes more and more true.
How do they do this every time? Ever since that LCK
We were watching the
loss.
whole time. I don't have the answers.
Now, in the Ultra Clutch, they haven't done. They didn't win LCK Summer.
They didn't qualify for Worlds.
But they went to the 5 games every time. And since then, since the reintroduction, the 13 wins in a row, they have done it every time. Amazing stuff.
Absolutely incredible, but does mean that we need to take a short break, get ourselves ready for game number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, you definitely do not want to miss it. It's going to be one hell of a corker. So hang on. Game 2 right around the corner.
seconds while